So binging and purging. So if we're to look at or define binging and purging, according to the DSM-5, which is the standardized manual for diagnosing mental disorders, we would diagnose or define binging as eating a large amount of food within a specific period of time that would be more than a person would normally eat. So that time period could be 2 hours, for example, that the amount would be larger. The second part of binging is that there's a feeling of out of control, that the person feels like they can't stop eating in that time period, or that they can't control how much they're eating. And then if we're looking at purging, purging is those inappropriate compensatory behaviors that are to stop weight gain. So we could be looking at self-induced vomiting, laxative abuse, misuse of diuretics or other medications, fasting, and excessive exercise. So our bodies are very smart. If we think about our brain and how small the brain is, the brain takes up 2% of the weight of our bodies. But then if we think about how much energy the brain requires, it actually requires 20% of the energy requirements of the body. So we're going from 2% of the weight of our body requiring 20% of that weight energy, or of that energy. So as I've talked to people that have had these struggles with binging and purging, the things that they will often say to me is they're restricting. There's this period of restriction. So the restriction can look different for different people. It might be that they're restricting for all day, trying not to eat. They might not eat breakfast, find an excuse to skip lunch, and then get to dinner and the body's starving and just begging it to eat. And that's where that binge purge cycle can start. Another way of restriction can be cutting out total groups or food groups or specific foods. So for example, somebody might totally cut out carbohydrates and say, I'm not eating carbohydrates anymore. And because they've cut that out, again, the brain is requiring carbohydrates to function, along with all the rest of our organs. And so part of that stress and that push to binge and purge, or the binging especially, is actually just simply that the body is requiring that energy. And this cycle can look different for different people. The binge purge cycle can look like starving all day, then doing one binge, one purge. Someone else might actually binge purge, and do this cycle for a couple hours at a time. Someone else might binge and not purge. Another person could eat a normal meal or eat the smallest amount and feel the need to purge it. So it's really important for us to get to know each individual and recognize that binging and purging is so different for so many people, and we need to understand what that person is going through in order to help them. So no matter how a person is binging or purging, the physiological and psychological effects are very serious. So when a person is engaging in binging behavior, those physiological side effects can be things like weight fluctuation. The weight can go up or down more than a person without an eating disorder, diabetes, and cardiovascular problems. The psychological effects can also be really detrimental. Psychological effects can include a lot of loneliness, social isolation, thoughts of self-harm, thoughts of suicide, and it can even be taken a step further where they're engaging in self-harm or suicidal attempts. I will go through 3 different types of purging and the effects that we want to watch for. So the first one is self-induced vomiting. We're bringing up a lot of fluids that shouldn't be coming up. So we're watching electrolyte imbalances. These electrolyte imbalances can be monitored by lab work, and we want to watch especially the potassium, the sodium, as those are key electrolytes for heart function. We also want to be looking at dehydration. Dehydration can be monitored by lab work as well, or a simple urine sample to check the specific gravity. Along that, because of this potential electrolyte imbalance, we want to be watching heart health. So an EKG, and make sure that you're being followed by those things with your doctor. With vomiting, we also want to be watching for the acid in the stomach that's coming up and passing through your esophagus is very dangerous for the esophagus. It can cause what we call Mallory-Wise tears. This can be seen by if you're seeing streaking in the vomit or blood streaking in the vomit. If there is more than streaking, you'd want to go to the emergency. But make sure that your doctor knows if you see streaking of blood. And then finally, we want to be thinking about dental health, because that acid in the mouth is going to erode at the teeth. So if you're struggling with purging, make sure that you don't brush your teeth right away. You want to wait at least 30 minutes before brushing your teeth. Or if you really need to rinse, make sure that you rinse just with water or add a baking soda to the water, and that can help neutralize the acids. So another form of purging is laxative abuse. And with laxatives, we're watching a lot of the same things as the self-induced vomiting. Electrolyte imbalances, dehydration, as we're watching, because the laxatives are just pulling fluids and moving electrolytes and fluids in that large bowel. So it really is, weight loss is just water loss. It's a misconception that you can actually lose weight by abusing laxatives. But some people just want to feel empty, and they're seeking that feeling of emptiness, and so they abuse these laxatives. Now, if a person would like to stop taking laxatives, I would advise you to do that with medical professionals, because the bowel may not work properly if you suddenly stop taking laxatives. And so let somebody help you through that. Laxative abuse can kind of go to two extremes. There can be constipation that can be caused, or incontinence, and both of which can be painful and embarrassing. The last one is excessive exercise. Now, this one is harder to catch in people, as we accept exercise. We encourage people to exercise. And so, for example, let's say that I ride my bike to work. My coworkers are like, "Good for you. Oh, you're so active. You're so healthy. Good job." But in reality, maybe I rode my bike to work because I ate breakfast, and I thought I have to exercise because I'm going to eat breakfast. Or maybe I'm going to ride my bike to work and back from work, and I'm going to run 5 miles, and I'm going to clean my house vigorously. So it's harder to catch, but it is very important, as it also has a lot of side effects. Some of those side effects can, again, electrolyte imbalances, dehydration, watching a lot of the same things, but now we've added heart health. We've added bone health as well. So if a person is over-exercising, there might be stress fractures. And when a person has stress fractures and it's being driven by the eating disorder, then you're going to exercise through those stress fractures. And you might take pain medications to help with the pain, which can lead to addiction and stomach ulcers. And so there's a lot of detrimental side effects to this over-exercise piece that we need to be aware of. When we're talking about how to help somebody to get through or to break this binge purge cycle, there's 6 strategies I want to talk about. The first strategy is to eat regularly. For someone with an eating disorder or struggling with binging and purging, it feels very counterintuitive to just start eating and eat regularly. But it is so important to keep the body fueled with energy, to help that physiological response to stop pushing you to eat more than you need to eat. So we would want you to be eating breakfast, maybe a small snack, lunch, maybe another snack, dinner, etc. Now, going from trying to starve yourself all day and then binging and purging in the evening might be really difficult to all of a sudden start eating regularly. And so I would suggest that you start with just add breakfast. Maybe just start there. Or maybe just add a snack, your AM snack, and do that for a while and have someone that you're accountable to, whether it's a dietitian, your doctor, a support person, to be accountable to just trying to add that in every day and slowly increasing to that eating regularly. My second strategy is to identify the times that can be a crisis. So you want to identify the crisis before you get to it and make a plan. How am I going to deal with this crisis when I get there? And that will help you to have those strategies already in place. Who are you going to call? What are you going to do? What things can you put in place that will distract you from that really difficult situation? If you get invited to a party or a dinner, how are you going to manage that situation? What supports are you going to need? And identify that and even maybe write it down. The third strategy is to use distraction. Now, for distraction to actually work, you have to choose things that actually distract. So maybe you're writing down different ideas on a list or in a safe place where you can go to that place to look for ideas when you need a distraction. It could be watching TV, talking to a friend, doing a video call with a friend, playing with your pets, learning a new skill, learning an instrument, playing an instrument, all these different ideas, and have those ideas accessible. And it has to be something that will actually be able to take your mind for a moment away from that strong desire to binge and purge. Fourth, mantras. So find coping phrases that will help you to get through those moments. For example, I am strong. I can do this. Knowledge is power. These kinds of mantras can get you through those difficult times. Fifth, remember that food is your medicine. So just like with any disorder, physiological or psychological, and we need to take different medications, when someone is struggling with an eating disorder, the food is actually the medicine. And reminding yourself of that or reminding someone else of that can be extremely helpful. To remember that I have to take this to get better. And lastly, remembering that supports are so important. Train your supports. Tell them what you need. Tell them what kind of things they say when you're in crisis help you more than other things. Have them be with you to distract with you. All of these strategies can come together, and you might need to use more than one at a time. You might need to distract and say a mantra to yourself at the same time to get you through that difficult time. But you can get through it, and the binge purge cycle can be broken. Warning signs can be as simple as somebody starts to obsess a lot about food, about their weight, about how they look, a change in mood, changing in sleep patterns, loss of motivation. Other warning signs can be this frequent need to go to the bathroom after eating. So as a supporter, the ways to get help would be to try to talk to that person. Ask them what they need. The avenues to receive help for an eating disorder: go to your doctor, get that conversation going. You might need group support for eating disorders. You might need a psychologist, psychiatrist, dietitians. Various different supports are available to help manage binging and purging. Now, for the role of the supporter, what can you do? The biggest thing is to listen. Be a good listener. Allow that person to talk. Allow them to talk about what they need without judgment, without telling them how to fix it, and just let them talk through it. Because sometimes just talking through it can lighten that load, that burden that they're carrying. It's burdensome to carry that dark voice in your mind telling you that you're not good enough, that you can't eat. And so just being there for them in that way to be a good listener. Another way to be a good support is to eat with them. Be a good role model. Eat appropriately. Eat a great meal and end it with dessert. Show them what normal eating is like and that it's okay. Talk about food, not as good food, bad food, healthy, unhealthy. Just all food fits. Let it all be acceptable around them. You also want to be mindful of when they go to the bathroom. If they're struggling with binging and purging, you might need to follow them there. And that might be a conversation that you may or may not have with them, but you might need to go there with them. The eating disorder has lots of tricks and lots of lies. And as a supporter, it's important to remember to separate the person that you know from the illness. It's not the person that you love lying to you and tricking you. It's the eating disorder that's lying and tricking you. So when they're turning on the shower in order to purge and you not to hear them, they're not trying to deceive you. The eating disorder is trying to deceive you. And same with all the lies that come along with it. So as a good supporter, be forgiving and try to be understanding of how difficult this illness is for that person. Going forward, we need to change the conversation. So let's not worry about our weight. Really think about it. Why do you care about your weight? What does that number mean to you? Can we get rid of our scales in the homes? Can we let it go? Can we just let the health professionals worry about our weight? And let's change the conversation about food. I don't like to hear good food, bad food. This is healthy, this is unhealthy. Let's just accept all food and realize that all of it has a place for us in our lives. Sometimes food for me is to nourish me. Sometimes it's to enjoy a social event with someone or to connect with someone. And let's allow food to come to us in our lives like that. I have 2 sons, and 3 months ago, I had a baby girl. And I think about them and I think about their future. And I would like that conversation to already be changed for them. So let's think about that next generation and what weight and food is going to mean to them. And let's change the conversation.